Good morning. It's July 21st, and this is To My Liberal Friends. What evidence do you think would have to be put forward for the media types like CNN and MSNBC to acknowledge that something does not look right when it comes to Hunter Biden's business dealings and his father, Joe Biden? The bulk of the media in this country has demonstrated over the past several years that they are fully in the tank for the Democratic Party. They took the Russian collusion information and ran with it full bore. They accepted that the Steele dossier was completely true and that Donald Trump and his campaign had openly colluded with Russian operatives. It took the Mueller investigation and other reports to show that the Steele dossier was made up of whole cloth, and in fact the source of the document was a former British intelligence agency officer that was now located in Washington, D.C. at a think tank. But that did not stop the media from day after day claiming they had knowledge and conclusive proof, as claimed by Congressman Adam Schiff, that the accusations of collusion by the Trump campaign were in fact true. Of course, Congressman Schiff never produced any of that proof that he claimed to have, and the media clung to their belief that the dossier was correct until they finally had to admit that it was mainly false, that it had been paid for by Democratic operatives connected to the Clinton campaign. Then we had the Hunter Biden laptop story. The media bought the line that this was more Russian disinformation and that the laptop never belonged to Hunter Biden and all of its contents were false. They were supported in their efforts to ignore the story by the letter that was generated by intelligence officials which said it was Russian disinformation. Once again, the Washington Post and New York Times had to finally admit after a year later that the laptop did belong to Hunter Biden and the contents on the laptop were in fact created by him. But they did that reluctantly. By now, everyone knows that Hunter Biden has been using his father's name and traversing the world to make millions of dollars. Joe Biden claims he never discussed his son's business dealings with him. But in a hearing this week, Congressman Dan Goldman, a Democrat of New York, seemed to indicate that President Biden had in fact discussed Hunter business dealings. Quoting him, he said, quote, "Hunter told his dad, according to Biden family business associate Rob Walker, I may be trying to start a company or try to do something with these guys. Now let me ask you something. That doesn't sound much like Joe Biden was involved in whatever Hunter Biden was doing, the Chinese oil and mineral gas company CEFC, if Hunter Biden is telling him that he's trying to do business with them, does it?" End quote. Well, it tells you that he talked to his father about it, which Joe says he never did. This was the hearing where the two IRS whistleblowers testified that their investigations were impeded by political appointees at the Department of Justice and the FBI. These two employees, Gary Shapley and Joseph Ziegler, are senior investigators at the Internal Revenue Service. They have been there for years. Ziegler has stated that he's a Democrat and is a gay man married to another man. According to Ziegler's testimony, Hunter Biden raked in over $17 million from business dealings in China, Ukraine, and Romania. But Congressman Golden countered by saying the two investigators had no direct evidence that Joe Biden was involved in his son's business dealings. And the WhatsApp message that was uncovered by a subpoena only says that President Biden was sitting next to Hunter when Hunter demanded that $5 million be paid to him from a Chinese energy company. Okay, how many of you can say with a straight face that Joe Biden was just sitting there and not involved in the discussion? How many of you really believe that on those hours upon hours of plane trips, the two never spoke about what Hunter was up to in those countries? I would put to you that if these same accusations were made against Donald Trump and one of his children, the media would be all over it. It'd be front page and the lead story for every news outlet. But for some reason, the media has decided to downplay the story because it's about the Bidens. Well, this week, Chuck Grassley, senator from Iowa, released an unclassified FBI-generated record describing an alleged criminal scheme involving then Vice President Joe Biden and a Ukrainian business executive. Grassley acquired the record at FD-1023 via legally protected disclosures by Justice Department whistleblowers. Now, how did the major news network like CNN cover this development? Here was CNN's take on it. And I'm going to quote them. The FBI document says an informant described a 2016 meeting where Mykola Zolochevsky, the CEO of Ukrainian energy company Burisma, claimed he had made two $5 million payments to the Bidens, though he didn't specify who received the alleged bribes. It cost $5 million to pay one Biden and $5 million to another, Zolochevsky told the FBI informant at a 2016 meeting in Vienna. The informant, whom the FBI has described as highly credible, was not able to provide any further opinion as to the veracity of the claims, and that's according to the FBI document. At the time of the informant's meeting with Zolochevsky, Hunter Biden was on Burisma's board, earning $50,000 a month. The informant told the FBI the supposed Biden bribes came up during a conversation about how to deal with the Ukrainian investigation into corruption by Burisma. Now, here's what the CNN reporters took from that, and they chime in with this statement, quote, "For years, Republicans have falsely accused Joe Biden of abusing his powers to get the top Ukrainian prosecutor fired, so the probe would go away. In reality, his actions were consistent with bipartisan U.S. policy, which sought to remove the prosecutor because he wasn't doing enough to crack down on corruption." End quote. Wow. And I will put it to you that absent a video of Joe Biden taking money, the media will continue to give him cover. There's a rumor that a Ukrainian official has recordings that include Joe Biden being involved. I wonder how the media would react if that were in fact true and they were being played for people to hear. My guess is they would say it was Russian disinformation and ignore it and tell everybody else, prove that that's really Joe Biden. It might be somebody who just sounds like him or looks like him. Well, this has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening.